Welcome again. Thank you all very, very much for being here. My name is Lauren Williams. I'm Adult and Community Services Manager at the Columbia Public Library, which is part of the Daniel Boone Regional Library System. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. Today's update from Columbia City Manager DeCarlon Seewood is co-hosted by the library and the League of Women Voters of Columbia Boone County. And now I'd like to welcome our moderator, League of Women Voters of Columbia Boone County President Barbara Happy. Thanks, Barbara.
Thank you, Lauren, as always, for co-sponsoring and co-hosting this program along with the Columbia Public Library. And it's my pleasure today to introduce our guest speaker, our new city manager, DeCarlon Seewood. Welcome, DeCarlon. He has just been appointed the city manager and started in January. Before that, he was assistant city manager for the city of Columbia for 2 years. And before that, he was city manager for Ferguson from 2015 to 2019. And before that, he had experience as a village manager in Richton Park, Illinois, in Berkeley, and then also was an assistant city manager in Ferguson from 2007 to 2009. And he has a bachelor's degree in political science from Rockhurst University, and then a master's of public administration from the University of Missouri. So we look forward to hearing from Mr. Seewood, or Dr. Seewood, I'm not sure of the first term, and hearing what you would like to share with us in terms of goals and challenges. And then I remind people to enter your questions in the chat feature, and we'll try to get to as many questions as possible. With that, welcome, Mr. Seewood.
Thank you very much. Who am I? DeCarlon Seewood. I have 25 years experience in local government. I am a father of two. I have a 27-year-old son and a 21-year-old daughter. I have a 5-year-old grandchild. I started my career in mid-Missouri. So my first job coming off of grad school from MU was for the city of Fulton. And I worked in Fulton for 4 years as the assistant. And I really gained an appreciation for local government. One of my projects in Fulton that I really enjoyed, and I really think back of why I fell in love with this profession, was working in the Carver Park neighborhood. It's a predominantly African-American neighborhood, bookend between William Woods and Westminster University. And for decades, the neighborhood had been ignored. And so we were able to get some community development block grant money. And I want to say within 4 years, we spent about $3 million of federal dollars just going in and improving the neighborhood. We tore down derelict homes. We turned a park that was infamous for drug use and made it an amenity to the neighborhood. We were able to take derelict homes, rehab them, and provide for opportunities for home ownership. And so that experience made me really realize that the things that we can do in local government is huge and can be so much and so impactful. From Fulton, I went on and was in Ferguson as the assistant, and I was in Ferguson as the assistant from 2001 to 2007. And then from Ferguson, I went to be the city manager in Berkeley, Missouri. And so that was my first stint as a city manager. I came back to Ferguson in 2015 after the death of Michael Brown because I wanted to be part of the positive momentum that I knew the city could do in order to move the community forward. And so from leaving Ferguson to come here in Columbia, I was really excited about the opportunities to be part of a community that is known to be extremely progressive, that is known to really work toward doing those things that are truly impactful for the community. When I was interviewing and I was talking to Mr. Glasscock about some of the things that the community was doing, to realize that in most communities, when they take their community development block grant money. They're putting it toward streets and roads and sidewalks where we were building houses. We were trying to find ways to make people homeowners. We were using the funds to, build up people's lives. And so it was exciting for me to be part of that, be part of this organization. When John announced that he was leaving and the council interviewed me and they said, okay, so what are your goals? So what are your 30, 60, 90, 365 degree day goals in order for your first year here? And I looked at some of the challenges that I knew we were facing. So it was the ones that we would recognize. It's the homeless situation. It's looking at affordable housing. It's looking at community violence and how do we make improvements in order to improve people's lives. But then there was one goal that we really don't talk about, and it's our employee engagement. If you talk to some of the employees for the city, for the longest time, they felt like they weren't listened to. They didn't feel like the city cared. And so it's engaging our employees to show them that they are of value and that we do care about them. We want to make their lives better. We need to work on how do we engage our residents. There's a lot of people who really have a distrust for government because they really don't understand what we do, because we really haven't done a good job of telling them what we do and why we do it. And so those are my goals, is how do we better engage? How do we better get the word out on what are we doing and how do we do what we do? Now when we talk about our budget process, though, the city has a $500 million budget, but what does that mean? And how does that affect everyone's day-to-day lives? So part of our budget conversation has to be explaining exactly what that budget does and how does it affect the day-to-day of every citizen. And so those are my goals. What I was hoping for this, it was just to really be a question and answer. I give residents or members an opportunity to ask me questions, and I can try to answer them and talk about how we can move things.
See. Thank you, Mr. Seewood. Well, I'll start off with a question. I don't see any questions in the chat feature yet, but I have a couple to start off with. Recently, we shared a Zoom program about Columbia Transit and Paratransit for disabled individuals, and there were a lot of concerns about that. So can you talk a little bit about that and what can be done to improve the service that so many people rely on for their life?
Yeah. So one of the things is we really need to understand what our transit needs are. And so I was at a meeting with some leaders, and they were saying that one of the impediments for people to get to jobs is there's a lack of transportation to get to jobs. And they're like, well, how do we get people to these jobs? I'm like, well, the city runs a bus service. We should be able to provide that. And so we really need to take a step back and actually look at our system and see, are we going to the places that we need to go? Are we providing a system that people want, or the system that we believe they want? And I think that's the rub. And so we have to really engage people to figure out exactly what should we be doing and design the system around what our citizens' needs are.
Okay. And there was a specific concern about people that have disabilities and using the regular bus system, as well as having a better para system. Can you speak to that a little bit, or do you know much at this point?
Well, I know we have the paratransit that should be set up to assist those who are with disabilities who are in need. And our paratransit, but probably they run a lot easier than the regular bus service because they don't have to have fixed routes. So it's just about calling in and signing up for it.
So, well, I know they have problems with having too many people signed up so they can't get on the bus, or that bus drivers are not trained with input from the riders, and the system isn't. So anyways, I share that with you, and we do have questions now, so I'll go to those. The first question is, how will you utilize the use tax funds if passed?
Yeah, so primarily what we would use the use tax just the way we normally use our normal sales tax. So majority of it goes to public safety. Portion of it would go to streets and roads. So ideally what we would try to do is to bring on additional firefighters. We have a new house 10 that's being opened on the south side of town. No, house 11 is on the south side. House 10 will be on the east side. And so we need to hire firefighters for both those firehouses. We also need additional police officers. So that would be the first crunch of what those funds would go toward.
Okay, thank you. And we'll have a special program on that with our candidate forum on March 23rd for people to learn more about the use tax. We have another question. Are you asking low-income neighborhoods what they see their needs are, and how are you doing that?
Well, and so that's part of what we need to do with our engagement plan. And so the idea would be that we would actually go into the neighborhoods and we would actually ask residents what their needs are, what are they looking for, and how can we best serve. I can't say I can't say that we've been doing that, but that is what my goal is for us to do.
Great. We have more questions. What are some of the issues with city services, such as infrastructure and utilities, that you see? And how do we need to plan for the future with these?
Well, and I think with any community, especially the one that's a full service community, we have to look ahead. We need to look at our electric lines and see exactly if there are improvements, what do they look like, and what is our schedule for? It's the same thing with our water plant and our sewer plants. No, we have a lot of infrastructure underground that we have to have a replacement schedule on when we will dig up pipes and when we will make those replacements. Or if we're going to do a lining, what does that look like? Just for instance, we just did a process where we were trying to flush out water lines in order to make an improvement in a neighborhood. And when we flush out the lines, that cause up sediment to occur, which causes the water to change color. And then people are afraid of what's going on. Well, we need to do that more often, and we need to have communications with residents about what's going on and what are we doing in their neighborhoods.
Okay, thank you. Another question: with the upcoming election, which includes the mayor's position, how do you propose to work with the new mayor to advance community priorities?
Well, I pride myself on being able to work with almost anybody, but ideally, we'll have that relationship. We'll sit down and we'll talk about what the priorities are. We'll engage residents. We'll hear what the priorities are, and we work toward making those improvements. It's about working hand in hand in order to get things done for the community.
Okay. Here's another question. The police and fire departments are having difficulty hiring and retaining staff. How can the city encourage applicants?
It's not just germane to just police and fire. That's something that's happened throughout the city and actually throughout different organizations. It's been difficult in order to hire people. And so we are putting together a plan for just doing that. It's getting out and getting in front of people to talk about the benefits of the jobs. Also, we need to start partnering with the schools and create a platform to allow someone to go from high school to a full-time job. When my daughter, she graduated from Ferguson Florissant School District, she was in their criminal justice program. And their criminal justice program was taught by a law enforcement officer. And it taught the youth about policing. And a lot of those kids went from that program to become a police officer by the time they were 21. But it's just having that path forward. And so there's things that we could do in order to do just that. We need to, go out and find youth for some of our programs with our electric utility. And if we can find someone who wants to be a lineman, you start them off young as a journeyman and let them go through that process in order to become a lineman. But it's about engaging people about here are some of the opportunities that we have in Columbia.
And I have a follow-up question to that. I'm aware that the planning department is probably not staffed as well as they should too. They've been dealing with, I'm on the infrastructure growth task force, and they had been focused on the reapportionment of the wards in the last couple months. So our committee and our work has been sort of on hold because they don't have enough staff to really do all the things that they're tasked to do. So are there efforts to increase staffing in terms of the planning staff, the development staff?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. And that's one of the things throughout the city. And so one of the things that we are doing right now is we're doing a pay and classification study. We know that our salaries aren't competitive. And so through the study, the plan is to get our salaries up to where they should be, which will hopefully allow us to go out and recruit and retain additional employees.
Hey, we have more questions. What are your thoughts on climate action, mitigation, and adaptation? And what actions will you take within the city management to move forward on climate action and adaptation plan goals?
Well, it's setting realistic goals, and it's understanding how those goals impact the city. So we really have to look forward. I mean, luckily we do have a climate action committee that will help us develop those goals. We have a sustainability staff that's their job as well. And so we can come together with goals, we set benchmarks, and then make sure that we're obtaining those benchmarks. But it's about having a plan.
Yeah, and I know that the council has yet to vote on that recent plan, and the League of Women Voters is in supportive of 100% renewable utility energy by 2030. So that's our interest and where we stand. We've been a long time supporter of renewable energy and from way back when. Okay, let's see, there's more questions. What is the status with the sanitation workers? Are we going to convert many from temps to full-time positions? And how quickly will that happen?
And so the council actually created a non-CDL sanitation worker position, I want to say 2 council meetings ago. And so we've started to advertise and bring in some of the guys who are currently doing temp work into those roles. And so it's happening now.
So then there'll be full-time employees with benefits and security.
Yes, ma'am.
And sort of it's probably people are interested. And, for years we've been talking about whether to have the automatic trash bins or the bag system. Can you tell us a little bit about where we are on that?
Well, and I think that's one of those community priorities that really has to have a lot of discussion. So what we plan to do in May is bring forth some ideas to the city council to discuss alternatives. And is it continuing the current system? Is it moderate? It's going away from that system, but in certain intervals, is it looking at roll cards? What's the best way forward? And we can have that full-fledged conversation with the citizens to find out exactly what our citizens' needs and desires are.
Okay, so that's still in the discussion and works.
It is.
Let's see. Oh, I guess that's the end of the questions so far from the viewers. So I encourage viewers to put in more questions. I have one. Recently, there's been a lot of publicity regarding the homeless camps in Columbia and discussion about a possible winter outdoor space for those homeless who, for various reasons, can't or won't take advantage of our shelters, our other shelters, and as well as the Wabash Station. Can you give us your thoughts and update on that?
I think, you know, as we're looking at, you know, how do we tackle the homeless situation in our community? It's really relying on the partners who provide that service and having conversations with the partners to see exactly how can we best assist them. And so we right now there is the city has sponsored a planning grant that is it's the head agency is the housing authority, but it's the housing authority, it's VAC, it's Loaves and Fishes, it's Turning Point, it's Ratty, that group coming together to figure out exactly what can we do, what should we do, where's the best place to do it, and developing a plan on how do we move forward. And so what we need to, so in order for us to move that ball forward, we all need to make sure we're working together in order to, you know, solve this issue.
And just to follow up on that, I know other communities have a designated like homeless camp. So those like we have an individual living under a trail close to our house, just down the street, that has about a truckload worth of stuff under the trail. And he obviously has some mental issues too, which sometimes makes it uncomfortable to go even on the trail. So is there any discussion, or do you know, are you aware of other communities that have a designated safe outdoor camp for winter weather?
Not in Missouri. You do find some of that like in the Seattle area, but not. I haven't seen anything in Missouri that does that.
Yeah, my daughter lives in Durango, Colorado, and they had one there. They have really cold weather, and it has. I mean, they've had to struggle with making it work well for everyone. But so, anyways, just wanted to ask about that and throw that question out. Let's see, we have more questions. What is your view on the use tax ballot issue? So you talked a little bit about what it would be used for, but what is your view on that?
Well, it's about giving our local businesses a fair shake. And one of the things you will have happen is that what the use tax does, it does that equalization where you have the out-of-state business that's selling to Columbia residents, but they don't have to pay Columbia tax. And so what the use tax will do is they will pay the same tax as a local business. And so it's just making sure that our brick and mortars have a fair shake when it comes to that process.
Right. So it's good for the local businesses because it puts them more on a level playing field. Absolutely. With the internet. Right. And I know, I was on the city council for 9 years up to 2015. And the sales tax that the city relies on was continuing to dwindle year after year. And since then it has increasingly dwindled. So cities are needing to do more with less and less. Right. Is the big thing.
Yeah, so, our sales tax rate hasn't kept up with our population growth.
Right. And so let's see if there's more questions here. I don't see more questions. Well, I have one. How, Columbia, oh, there's another, I'll ask mine later. How much money do you expect use tax to raise? So I'll follow up on the use tax.
It should raise about $5 billion, a little over.
5 billion?
5 million.
Million. Okay, because I knew you said we have a $500 million budget. So 5 million for the first year at least. Yeah.
Yes.
I have a question. The Columbia has, is a big functioning city with many departments, and how will you keep your finger on the pulse of the different departments and what's really happening, and whether plans are actually being implemented?
Yeah, I meet with people every day, and so most of my day is meeting with different departments, finding out exactly what we're doing to make sure that we're doing the things that we say we're supposed to be doing. And so it's just staying engaged.
And do you have just one assistant or more than one assistant now?
So right now I have one assistant and an assistant two. I will hire a deputy position. That was my former position.
Okay. Let's see. I'm checking, and I guess you're answering, and you addressed a lot of the questions. So I'm not thinking of anything coming to mind. Is there anything else you would like to?
There is one question, Barbara. Sorry to just go back a little bit. There was one from Michael Cox there. Do you see?
Oh, okay. Oh, no, I asked that already.
Oh, you did? I'm sorry.
Yeah. That was about the police and fire department.
The one, if you're attending a council candidate forum, what question would you put to the candidates?
Oh, I didn't see that one. Okay. Did you hear that, Mr. Seewood?
I did. I think, one of the questions that you could ask is, how do they feel their role would be in working with city staff in order to move this community forward?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's important. There's more questions now. Follow up, the budget of 500 million is real money. That's in regard to the additional use tax. Do you have the budget online for the citizens to see?
Yes. Yes, our budget is online.
Okay, and then another question. As energy costs increase, is the city preparing to assist elders that are on fixed income?
There is a program that assists residents that are in need.
And how do they apply for that? Do you know?
I think, well, they can apply for it through the utility company. They can, and there's other service agencies that also provide assistance. But I think ours is Como Cares.
Okay. I'm going to check on the questions, but I have another one. Yeah, we don't have a new question from participants yet, but I have a question, and it's sort of related to utility bills, and it's connected with climate change and energy efficiency. About half of our housing stock is rental units, and many of those, the renters pay for the utilities, and so they don't have the funds to make the homes or the apartments more energy efficient. So what can the city do to make sure that our housing stock is more energy efficient, which makes for lower costs for rental and low income and the seniors for sure? and it also helps address climate change.
Yeah, and that's a hard one because, you know, while what we can do is right now we provide a service where we can rate the energy consumption of a home and let you know whether or not that home is efficient. We can also offer programs to assist with improving those homes. You know, the one issue that you have with the rental property is you can't force the landlord to do those improvements. And so you can incentivize, you can assist and give them the tools to understand exactly what needs to be done, but the work is trying to convince them in order to do that work in order to get it done.
Right, so we've talked about like having a rating system that renters can easily see what the energy efficiency over a period of years is for that unit. So it's not aimed to one user.
Right.
And then I'm sure there are loan programs for owners of rental property to energize or make their homes more energy efficient, which increases the value of their home. So it's making sure that they take advantage of that.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So I think we have more questions maybe along that line. Let's see. Columbia utilities have a fixed charge in addition to the cost for the usage level of the product. This has been increasing over the last decade. Poor individuals generally use less product than those with higher incomes. A high base rate disproportionately impacts those with low incomes. How can we deal with this? So that the base rate, they have that base rate that is doesn't correlate to their usage. Yeah.
All right, and I know we can take a look at the homes. We can look at what are some of the improvements that you can do on that home to make them more energy efficient. The question of how do we look at the billing to change that process for billing to charge more for, were they asking to charge more per income or more for utilization? Or
maybe less for base for low users.
And so, I mean, that's a formula that we'd have to look at. And so one of the things that we do is, we have, when we look at our rates, we have people come in and they do a rate analysis. And so from that analysis, we can look at it, see exactly what are some of the pinpoints that we can look at where we may need to change how we are charging. But that needs to be done through that rate analysis process.
Okay, we're getting more questions here. This is a different one. Can you talk about the challenges for you in the city created by the ongoing pandemic? And it's dwindling a little bit now, but it may roar up again in the fall.
I think probably the biggest challenge is just connections. We went away from having some of those face-to-face interactions to more Zoom meetings and Google Meets, and you may be able to get your job done a little easier because you're sitting in your office and going from meeting to meeting. It does take away from some of that personal communication, some of that personal relation building. And so I think, the biggest impact is isolation. And so how do we make sure that we're still connected to people?
Okay, that's a interesting perspective and to get to know. Let's see, another question. Some of the lines on the pavement on Grindstone east of Providence are difficult to see. This is especially true when driving east in the morning to get to Highway 63. Does the city maintain Grindstone, and is there a schedule repainting of the lines on the pavement for the pavement? You may not know the specific road.
Right. So I'm not sure if that's one that we maintain or not. I know if it is, there should be a pavement schedule that talks about making sure that we get our lines painted. So I can turn it over to Public Works and have them look at it. If it is something that we do, we'll do it. If it's not, then we'll talk to either the state or county, whoever is in control of Grindstone.
Okay, that's a reasonable answer. Okay, we have more questions. For energy concerns, should builders have a green rating on what they build for the market?
I'm not sure. I have not looked at that enough to say whether or not that would be effective.
Oh yeah, it's sort of like the Energy Star rating for your refrigerator or your dishwasher or your stove, your doors and your windows.
I mean, the question is, would that entice someone to do that because they feel like people are going to buy that, move into that product, or will it? So I don't know if it'll be effective, but that's something we can look at.
Okay, let's see. Oh, Lauren Williams put a link to the city budget online in our chat feature for people who are interested in that to make it easy to get to. And we have another question. What is the status of the performance audits? Where would you suggest the next audits occur?
Well, so the audit that should be presented to the council soon is the one that's presented of our utilities. And so that should be a pretty good one. That's wrapped up, and I think should be presented within the next couple of meetings. The next audit, I'm not sure. No, we try to tackle all the touch points, and so I know we've done cashiers, we do our budget every year. We've done utilities, we've done our contracts, and so we really are trying to make sure that we are doing all those touch points to provide comfort with our citizens that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Thank you. We have a few more questions. Let's see. One is on snow removal. I'm elderly and I shovel my walk, but the snow plows covers it up. Should I call Public Works? What should I do?
And it's interesting. That's a hard one. That's probably the biggest complaint you hear in every city when it comes to snow removal. You shovel your driveway, you shovel your sidewalk, the plow comes by and pushes the snow right back onto your driveway. And the issue with the plow is they can't lift the blade. And so when they're going down the street, they're going down the street. There are ways for when you shovel off to the driveway where you can push the snow so it doesn't necessarily push completely all the way back up into your driveway. And so we could put out things that will kind of give people tips on how to do that. But fundamentally, that's probably one of the biggest complaints that everyone has when it comes to snow removal.
And I know there's a variety of neighborhood organization Facebook pages, and I'm a member of some in the 6th Ward, and they have information on young people and youth who are interested in shoveling, some for money, but some just to help people. Right. Does the city have a resource like that online?
We do not.
Okay, that might be something, especially for neighborhoods that maybe don't have as many resources as other neighborhoods, like volunteers or something like that, or youth that get paid for that by the city. Let's see. Oh, I wanted to follow up with another question related to that. When we had a lot of snow this last time, many of the businesses downtown did shovel the snow and make it easy for the pedestrians, but others did not. And can we have a program where the snow is shoveled with a machine if they don't shovel it and they're billed for it? I know other cities do that.
Yeah, we'd have to have the staffing to do that part. The other part is that in order for you to, before you can bill for it, you'd have to cite them and then give them the opportunity to do the improvement before you go out and do the improvement yourself. But it's something we can look at. I think the hope is that if you can get the neighbors to hopefully push on their neighbors in order to do what's right, that everyone will maintain their property the correct way.
Yeah, and I'm talking more about downtown and the
right.
businesses, right? Okay, I think we have, let's see, if another question. If I have more questions, how and when can I contact you for a short interview? That's Cheryl Williams. So I don't know who that person is, but I imagine contacting your assistant.
Yes. Or you can contact my email. Is DeCarlon.seewod@como.com. That's DeCarlon.seewood@como.com. Oh, como.gov. Sorry.
Let's see. I have another question while we're waiting for more questions. We have a little bit of time left. Columbia has always been a town that is concerned about the environment and about protecting watersheds. We have wonderful natural areas around Columbia, and there's been a lot of concern about development in sensitive watersheds. So can you share your thoughts and sort of knowledge and goals for that?
Well, and like you said, the Columbia really has worked hard in order to make sure that we're providing the service to keep those watersheds and clean and improved. And so the fact that the last council meeting, we passed a ordinance to just continue on those processes. And so our stormwater utilities, they work really hard into making sure that they keep those inlets improved and also keep our waterways clean. So it is a top priority for the community.
And there have been a lot of studies, about the Bon Femme watershed and development. And sometimes those studies are done, they're good studies, but then they're never used or they're put on a shelf. And so I think that's where we have the clash of development wanting to develop in sensitive areas, maybe more intensely than the area can sustain. So,
right.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so with any part of any type of development plan, that should be looked at, and to ensure that the development isn't a impediment to the environment. And so part of what we should be doing, and when developers come forward, is looking at what their impact is, and
right.
making sure that we understand how that will impact the environment and what are some of the mitigations need to be done in order to lessen their impact.
Right, and maybe making it harder for development in the more sensitive areas.
Yes.
More expensive, or completely restricting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, versus not, because they're, I know when I was on council, we spent a lot of time on the Northeast Development Plan. I was on the study for the Bon Femme Watershed Plan. We spent years and lots of citizen involvement in both of those. So we want to make sure that those plans are being used. Let's see if we have more questions here. Let's see, a link to contact the city manager has been put on the chat by Lauren Williams. Thank you, Lauren. Another question. What is your policy on random seasonal closings of city parking lots? This happens without notice and forces park users to park on the street adjoining an empty parking lot. So do you know anything about that or want to address that?
I'm not sure. I don't know anything about that. I hadn't heard that complaint or that issue.
Yeah, I haven't either. So something to look into, I guess.
Yes.
There's another question. Are there concrete plans to convert electricity supply from the power plant to solar? And if so, please describe them.
Well, it's not necessarily from just solar. It's looking at different types of reusable energy. And so a lot of the power that when we buy power off the grid. And so it's making sure that the places that we're purchasing that power from are those reusable sites. We are putting in some solar infrastructure, but it's not as easy as the process of say, okay, we're going to convert this to here and this is when it's going to be done. It's all part of our process. Now, remember, most of the stuff that the city, when we're utilizing our electric utility, most of the electric that we're utilizing is electric that we're buying off the grid, not electric that we're producing.
Right, and I think the power plant has been pretty much converted to other materials than
mostly,
coal.
Yeah, we got rid of the coal, and so most of it's steam and natural gas.
Okay, and I know we have another question. Let's see. Does your office provide internship opportunities?
Yes, we have, and we also have fellowships. So with the city manager's office, we have a fellowship where a recent grad from a public administration or master's program can get a 2-year stint with the city to learn about city government, to learn about what are some of the things you can do in order to understand the different nuances. And a lot of our fellows end up staying on board and becoming regular employees. But we have internships, we have fellowships. We really have a lot of opportunities where we want to engage that young mind and how we're moving things forward.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I know I interacted with interns when I was on the city council, and they were very helpful actually. And they went on to, some of them work with the city or the university. Let's see, we have another question. Does Columbia need more building inspectors to ensure that new construction meets the International Energy Code?
I am not sure if we have any vacancies with our building department. I'm not. I know we have inspectors. I'm not sure if we have any vacancies currently.
Right, and then I guess another aspect to that is, even if there's no vacancies, do we need more inspectors to do the job that needs to be done? Right. I think the question.
Yeah, so, I don't. I have not looked into that to see if that is a major issue with us.
Yeah, so that sort of speaks to having codes and requirements, but unless we can follow up and check and enforce them, they're not really as good as they should be. Let's
Absolutely.
Put it that way. I'll check and see if there's any more questions. There aren't any more at this point. I do have one more question. It's I'd be interested in like what you like to do in your time off and what you enjoy doing just as a person.
So that's one of my, I like to travel. And so having time off, that's a rarity. But when I do, it's travel. It's looking at different places, looking at different countries, just kind of taking in the scenery to see exactly what's out there.
Yeah, I know when when I was on council, after you've been involved in the city and you're much more than I was, you can't visit a community or a city without wondering how they take care of this and how do they do that. And you want to see their wastewater treatment plant, you know, in Paris.
Absolutely. And it's funny because you find yourself looking at, you know, I was in Medellin, Colombia in December, and you're walking through the tourist area and like, wow, this is really clean. What's going on? And you look around and there's maintenance workers picking up trash constantly, but it's stuff that normally you wouldn't notice, but because you work for government, you see it and you notice it. You're like, aha, that's how they're doing it. That's how they keep their tourists engaged. So,
right.
Yes.
Right. So we're just about to the end of our program. Do you have any closing thoughts that you want to share?
Just though, I want people to realize that I do have an open office. If there's questions or concerns, send me an email, give me a call, let me know. I'll get back to you. I'll try to address what people are asking for. I believe in order for us to be successful in what we do, we have to work with an engaged citizenry. We have to make sure that our residents understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. And so when I say that my goal is to better engage, that is my goal.
So making it a two-way process or
absolutely
360-degree process.
Absolutely. Engagement is more than just sending out a press release and giving you a flyer.
Right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with us, answer questions, and share your thoughts. I want to remind people that we have 2 forums coming up, one on March 15th with the school board and the ballot issues at 7 p.m. and then another on March 23rd with the city council candidates, the mayor candidates. And both will be both in person at the library and on Zoom. And you have to register because they're going to have limited people at the library. So if you're interested in person, please register. And then it will be on Zoom also. Oh, wait, the candidates, I have a candidate forums are 6:30, not 7. Whoops, thank you, Carol. Okay, candidate forums 6:30, not 7. I forgot about that. And then wanted to let people know that our next Lunch and Learn program will be April 12th at noon. And it will be about the Sunshine Law. And the guest speaker will be Kathy Keeley, who is a journalism professor. And she was our guest speaker at our annual meeting last year, and who was very, very informative. So with that, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Mr. Seewood, for joining us. And we wish you the best of luck working with the city as the city manager. We know you'll do well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.